Alfred Bester, right, from Babylon 5. But some of us know him as Pavel Chekov from the Star Trek series. So let's give a nice warm Phoenix fan fusion to Walter Koenig.
So brave to come out this early. Yeah, so I've been to Phoenix before, but I've never seen any of you before, right? Any case, I'm here. I'm at your disposal. Whatever you might like to ask, you may ask, and if it's incredibly personal, I probably will answer it anyway.
So we did have an announcement earlier in regards to the mic, so if we can get some people, I'm going to ask them maybe one or two questions to allow some of you to kind of get some questions ready to go, and then we'll go and ask. So, yeah, my first question for you is, I understand that basically you started off, right, already with Gene Roddenberry back in 1963 with his first television production. I believe it was The Lieutenant?
It was The Lieutenant.
Yeah. How did you get started in that, or what is it that really motivated you to kind of get into acting at the beginning?
Well, I met him once when we were doing The Lieutenant. I met him in the beginning. I'd started to work at MGM. I was doing guest starring roles at MGM in a couple of different series. One was called Mr. Novak, and then there was something else as well. In any case, so my experience with him on The Lieutenant was extremely limited. I'm not going to give you any funny stories about that. Gary Lockwood was a pain in the ass. Got to know him, got to be friends with him. But I was pretty new in the biz, and he felt compelled to tell me how to read the lines, which is, that's a no-no. That's absolutely a no-no. You don't tell another actor how to read lines. So I had to straighten that out with him. Mr. Lockwood, that's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to, I'm not even going to be able to come up with the lines if I'm waiting for you to stop me and tell me that I'm not reading it the way you want me to. So he got it, we got through that, and then we got along well. The name of the episode was Mother Enemy, and it was about it's taken from the headlines. It was about a young man who was trying to get into officers' candidate school, or officers' training school. And they found out his mother was a communist, and they were trying to keep him out. So it's awfully early in the game for you to walk out.
They're the ASL.
I haven't said anything offensive yet. I will, but anyway, so Mother Enemy became Kami Mami, and it was a good experience. I enjoyed it. It was, as I say, it was a guest starring role, and I had fun. I met Gene once. I don't even know if he remembered me when I came into audition for Mr. Novak. I mean, for Jesus, for Star Trek. So you're going to have to come up with a more controversial question than that to get this going.
Oh, we just got it started, but we looks like we have a couple questions for you, so we'll go and start with the first one, please.
William Shatner stated back when he was writing his autobiography that he went to talk to the original cast of the Star Trek to jar his memory, remember a few things. And he was totally aghast that you guys felt a lot of animosity toward him. He said he was never aware of that.
He was totally aghast at what?
That the original cast felt any animosity toward him.
Really?
He was absolutely shocked. And I just wondered how you feel about that statement.
Well,
It could possibly be true. Could he have been that clueless?
it's such easy pickings. It's such an easy target, you know. And I'm sort of in my these mature years of mine. I'm not quite as quick to leap on the opportunity to insult somebody as I might have been when I was younger. Actually, I wrote an autobiography called Warp Factors, and I've been approached about doing an addendum, doing a second chapter of what's happened since 1997, when that was published. So I get into it. I'm a little less polite than I was the first time around, but hopefully in a humorous way. I don't want to, you know, if somebody isn't there to debate me, it doesn't seem fair to pick on them, you know? They need to be able to read up. I have a couple of stories about Bill that I think you'll, pick up the book, you'll find interesting. He is a myriad of contradictory personality traits. He can be extremely charming. Anybody experience that? Okay, yeah. So, and he can be otherwise as well. I think everything that everybody felt about him was totally justified. And everybody, all of the subordinate actors, the supporting actors in the show had some contentious feelings about Bill. But it was more about, not that he was purposely trying to be a pain. It's just that he was so self-involved. He was very self-involved. He did carry the show. He was the star. If it wasn't for Mr. Shatner and Leonard, but mostly Mr. Shatner, they would never finance the movies, you know, and we may not have even done 3 years of the series. So carried a heavy responsibility. It was to the, pretty much, what's the word I'm trying to get? Can't think of it. To the exclusion of the rest of us. He was so totally involved. And so that was unfortunate because he didn't recognize, he didn't acknowledge that we were there too. And we were, yes, our title was supporting actor. And yes, our credits came at the end of the show as opposed to at the top of the show. But we were human beings. And we were actors, and in some cases, very good actors. Actors better than, up to the demands of more challenging roles, if I can put it that way. And he didn't recognize that, because he was just so totally self-involved. But that's not so much a quality of meanness as it is a quality of self-involvement. Okay?
Thank you.
It's nice to see you, Mr. Cunning.
Hi.
How did you feel when the original series got canceled back in '69? The original Star Trek show?
Right. How did I feel about it?
Yeah.
How do you think I felt?
I
I didn't want him to go off the air. On the other hand, we were prepared. We were definitely prepared. As a matter of fact, between the '68 season, '69 season, Gene called me and asked me to come over to his house. And I came on the show in '67, the second season of the show. And they were looking for somebody who would appeal to the pre-adolescents. You know, the Davy Jones, if you remember Davy Jones from the Monkees,
Oh, yeah.
if you've heard of him. Looking for that crowd. And so I had done '67, and the reaction from the fans, from the very young fans, was very good, very positive, very supportive. And he had written a series of notes to the people who ran NBC, two guys named Schlosser and Werner, who at least ran NBC in conjunction with our show, saying that they wanted to enrich my character, enhance him, to make him more involved, to get him more involved with the girls, to go down to the planet, and all of that stuff, which sounded sensational. I couldn't have been happier. Then we discovered that a show that had come in mid-season called Laughing, coming to NBC, and it was kind of a variety comedy show. And it was hugely successful upon its introduction onto the NBC schedule. And they had it listed for like Friday night in 68, 69 season at 10 o'clock. And that was not a good time slot for them. And because they had problems with Gene was contentious in his own right and very much stood up for what he believed in, which you have to admire him for. They decided to switch us. It was sort of a punishment. And instead of Monday at 8, where we were scheduled to go, they put us on the night shift, on the death watch, at 10 o'clock on Friday. Well, my audience was either asleep or they were at the soda hop, they were, or popping pills, I don't know, but they weren't home watching television. So, and we found that out. I had talked George and Jimmy into doing this magazine layout with me, and it was a teenage magazine. And we were on horses, and that's sort of like Star Trek on horses. That's gilding the lily, That's
I can't remember.
Coles to Newcastle, You couldn't have anything, more of a guarantee than having us with horses. But I was mounted on a horse when the news came over that we were being switched to Friday night. And so I felt really bad about that. Are you leaving? Oh, okay. I was going to follow you out into the hall and tell you the story. It's not that I'm desperate for an audience or anything. So I said, that's it. Chekov, forget all the stuff that Gina told me. This was not going to be an even better opportunity than my first season had been. And for the most part, it was true. I'll give you an example. Spectre of the Gun, which was a third season episode, was written before this had come down. Before it had come down that we were going to Friday night. And that was going to be the kind of involvement that I was going to have. Went to the planet, got the girl, died, all those good things. So that would have been how Chekov would have been used. Because he had a really big audience, and kids who thought I was groovy, and wrote in pencil on my paper. So I knew at that juncture that we were definitely on a downward spiral. And it translated to the set. The whole environment changed. Nobody was grousing and moody, but certainly the sense of happiness and camaraderie and all those good things that we had experienced to a strong degree in season 2 were beginning to become absent in season 3. And as a matter of fact, there was one episode called something with God said. It was about little kids and
the children shall lead.
And the children shall lead. Perfect example of an abdication of creativity. They hired an attorney to play the lead. I guess a freaking attorney who had a couple of best-selling books and was well known as an attorney. But it's such a capitulation to the art of storytelling and to the art of theatrical presentation. Guy couldn't act. He wasn't he didn't grow up being an actor, and it wasn't his calling in life. So although I'm criticizing him, it's certainly understandable, why he was not qualified to play the role. Now, children, we are going to go here. And that was pretty much the way it was. And all I could do was sticking my fingers down my throat. So when I saw that, I knew that we had surrendered. That nobody believed that we'd be picked up beyond season 3, and of course that was the case. So I don't have any idea what you asked me because it's been so long. But I hope that I covered it in some degree. Did I?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Koenig.
Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Right. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm curious, we all most know you for a couple of roles. Is there a role that you've played that is not very well known, that you're very proud of what it was, that you'd like people to know better?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. Perhaps in the theater. I've done some, fun stuff in the theater. I've got comedy, and I've always enjoyed it, comedy. I did Scrooge, Christmas Carol, for 5 years, and I had a grand time doing that. That was a terrific challenge and great fun. And got the audience to laugh a lot. I did a play called The White House Murder Case, which was a very dark humor kind of thing where I played a CIA agent who was literally falling apart from a gas poisoning on the stage. And at one juncture I go, "Hey, what do I have here?" And it was, how do I say it? Like, come to me.
Go ahead, say what it is.
It was a false penis. Got a big laugh. And I did a play called Steam Bath, where I played God as a Puerto Rican towel attendant in a steam bath. And from the steam bath, I was calling up and telling who this man is going to heat a Cadillac in the second lane. He's going to have an accident. He's not going to survive. And that was very fun. Again, another very dark comedy. As far as parts, I try not to think about the past, and certainly not in terms of. I mostly think about the past in terms of the huge embarrassments that I suffered, not in terms of my successes, because that's a trap. It's like living back there, and the whole purpose is to move forward, to move on, to go forward. Star Trek certainly was all about that, and I'm at that age now where there is a trap about dwelling in past victories, past triumphs, and I don't think that's too healthy. So there was one part I wanted to play, okay, and I got very close to playing it, and it was a gruesome character. I don't know how many of you know about Charles Manson. Yeah. Well, they were Charles Manson was the leader of a cult, and they murdered people in Los Angeles. They murdered Tate, what was her first name? Yeah. And other people. And bizarre character, and most of his followers were women. And they were trying to find somebody to play him. And they couldn't find anybody in LA. They looked all over LA, and I got I got a casting director who I knew to call up and have them see me, and have the director see me. The director knew me as a writer because I had submitted. I was trying to get them up. Keep it very close attention to what I'm saying, and I have to ask you what we were talking about. Because I'm going to lose track of it, and go off on a tangent and then not remember what I was talking about. But I had written a screenplay about a Native American who comes off the reservation looking for the body of his son, and I wanted Marlon Brando to play the part. He was very sympathetic to the Native American cause, and I thought this might be something that was appealing to him. So I got it to him through this director. He didn't want to play Native American Brando. He wanted to support the cause. So it didn't go anywhere with him. But in any case, that's the way this director knew me. He knew me as a writer. He didn't know me as an actor. And so he was polite. He says, okay, here's a script. Don't memorize anything. There was a big monologue in it. He says, and don't try to imitate Charles Manson's voice, but work on it and come back and we can talk. I said, okay. Well, it just so happens there was a documentary playing in the movie theaters, or at least it was playing in the drive-ins. Yes, I go back that far. So I took a tape recorder to the drive-in, and I hooked it up to the little mic that they have. They have a little microphone outside the car. You can hear the voice. And I recorded all of Charles Manson's speech. And I took it home, and I did exactly what the director told me not to do. I memorized the monologue, and that's what he asked me not to do. Don't memorize it, and don't try to do his voice. And I worked on his voice. So I got his voice down, as well as I could. So I came back, and hello, hi, he said, and I said, and he was at his desk, and I said, can I have a minute to get ready? And he says, yeah, sure. And he started to write. Now, it was one of these happy moments where things just fall into place. He had his head down as I started reading. So before he even saw me, he heard me. And what he heard was Charles Manson. Because I had memorized the speech, and I had pretty much found the voice, found the timbre and the quality of his voice. So he was writing, and he heard this, and he stopped, and he listened before he looked. And when he looked up at me, his face was, he'd gone white. And he said, my God, this is Charles Manson. This is Charles Manson. So I went out of there thinking, got it! I got it! This is it! This is it! I didn't get it! I was the best one on the West Coast. They found an actor on the East Coast who was a terrific actor. And I ended up seeing part of, it was two-parter. It was called Helter Skelter. And I couldn't bear to watch the first half, the first night, but I did watch the second night, and I'm so glad that I did, because he was good. He was really, really good. If he would have been bad, that would have killed me. Because so I knew I could have done a good job. But seeing an actor do a really good job made it much easier for me. On the other hand, we're doing a list of my failures. This is so wonderful. They did there was a TV production of Steamboat, and it had been a Broadway play. And they had a Puerto Rican actor play the lead. Now his understudy was also Puerto Rican, and when they were going to do it as a television movie, they were looking for somebody to play that character. He was Puerto Rican. He was the second. He was the understudy. I didn't have it. I was doing it at that moment. I was doing the play in LA at that moment, and getting very good reviews and very responsive audiences. But it was Puerto Rican. I could certainly appreciate, cast somebody, if you can, who was racially or sexually right for the role. And they got him, but he was not good. He was a one-note actor. It drove me crazy. He was just one note throughout the entire performance. So that one I felt bad about. Charles Manson, okay. This one, not so much. God, anybody need a hanky?
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. K. Once again, welcome to Phoenix.
Yes, thank you. It's still morning, I think.
Just curious, of the 7 Star Trek movies that you appeared in, do you have a favorite and why?
I think it's almost self-evident. Which is my favorite? 4. Voyager. For many reasons, not all of them selfish. Some of them are selfish. But we did a movie that really addressed a topical situation. We addressed the environment. That's something that the series had been known for. That's one of the reasons that I was so proud to be a part of the Star Trek series. It wasn't just sci-fi. It wasn't just action adventure. It wasn't just William Shatner. It was a show that had a conscience, and so did Star Trek 4. Was concerned about the extinction of whales and the pollution and the causes for such extinction. So that was certainly among the reasons. Secondly, I thought it was a really well put together script. So was 2, but this was really good. I thought the scenes between Bill and Leonard and the trouble were really delightful and charming and fun. And I think they did that. They did them very well. There's an off-camera story that I love to tell about that. Didn't have to do with me, but we had. They broke us up into little parties with Michelle and I and George and Jimmy and DeForest and then Leonard and Bill. So everybody had their little moments. And George had a scene where he and Jimmy are coming down the street. It's early in the morning. It was really early in the morning. It was 10 o'clock. I consider that early. And George decided, this was a viable street. This was in San Francisco. And George decided that part of his business as he came down the street was to look into this tavern. So during rehearsal, he would look into the tavern, 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, there was actually a woman sitting on a stool in the tavern. And when he looked in, each time he walked by. So we did this about 3 times. 3 times he looked in, 3 times she waited. The 4th time, he said, okay, action, everybody! And George came down, looks into the window, she comes. Oh my. She's not more defended? Good. You come and take me off the set? Oh, okay.
If you were to put a nugget of your personal philosophy on a billboard, what would you say?
Your personal philosophy? I'm walking on very thin ice here because this is Arizona. And it's a conservative state, for the most part, from what I heard. I'm wishing for, my personal philosophy is, God bless us, we've got to get past where we are. We've got to get to a place where we love each other and respect each other. And we can all feel that we've gone through this life doing good and making the world a better place. It's very generalized, I don't want to get into specifics, obviously, but we're not there yet. And I find the circumstances of this administration so depressing that it's very hard to even talk about. That's the way I feel outside. That's it.
Hello, great to see you, sir. just one thing I've noticed is that when you're playing Chekov, you seem to get hurt like a lot. Like you get burned by acid, burned by electricity, you die, and you get a bug in your ear, and you almost get your head cracked open. So was that just a coincidence, or what was the reason behind that, if you will?
Yeah, that doesn't happen to other people. No, it's a good question, and there is a logical answer. And the logical answer is, we need to show jeopardy on the show. We need to show that people can get hurt. You know, that people could die. Otherwise, you lose a lot of the drama and the tension, and we need to feel that our heroes are in jeopardy. Well, it's least unbecoming for the youngest officer on the show to express that kind of pain and anguish. You know, you can excuse him better because he's young, he hasn't matured entirely, perhaps. Yeah, he's in the seasoned officer, and so it's more excusable. You don't feel like, God, what a wimpy guy, you know, as you would if it was Captain Kirk or Jimmy or Scotty or somebody like that. So, without anybody ever spelling it out to me, I came to realize that was the device they used to show jeopardy. Chekov was always, you know, getting, and I screamed about it. So, you know. I'm good screaming.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
My question is, did you ever receive any flack or like haters, you know, from playing a Russian during that time when Russia was such an enemy to us and stuff? But, you know.
Yeah. No. First of all, my audience was very young kids, and they weren't into politics. They were into groovy hair, you know, and the accent. So, you know, I was there for a very specific reason, you know, a very specific marketable reason. And so I never received any of that kind of flack. The only flack that I ever received was usually from college students. And not just college students studying Russian. And there's no W in the Russian language, okay? There's no W. And they would come up to me at conventions and say, you know, your accent is not right, it's all wrong, because there's no W in the Russian language, and you're always saying, pass the vegetables, or whatever the hell. And I tried to explain to them that my father was from Soviet Union. My father spoke with an accent, and he always used a W instead of a V. But it got to be a little annoying because they were so proud of themselves that they and no matter how frequently I would explain that that is authentic whether you want to believe it or not. So one day, two young women come up to me and say, Mr. Koenig, I just want to tell you how much we love your accent. I said, okay. You don't like the accent? Forget about it. You know, I'm not going to explain again. Blah, 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 blah. I said, what are you talking about? We're from Soviet Union. We love your accent.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So you're known most popularly for two different franchises, for Star Trek, Babylon 5, but you're never done until you're done. What haven't you done that you still want to do?
There's certain things I can't do anymore.
I find that hard to believe.
Thank you. What haven't I done? I don't know. As a matter of fact, I was approached recently about doing King Lear.
Oh, yeah, no, do that.
No,
No, you'd be phenomenal, do that.
at the age of 82, sure I could retain all of that dialogue. I mean, that would be great. What a challenge. that
You would be phenomenal.
Instead, I suggested to them that I do Death of a Salesman.
Also good.
Yeah, so we're mulling that around right now. We're mulling around the fact of doing a live theater production, either in Chicago or Los Angeles, of Death of a Salesman. Now, that's been a part that I've wanted to do since I was in my mid-40s. I've seen several terrific actors do it, and they all did it differently. Dustin Hoffman actually did it on television. I wouldn't have done it that way, but I would have. But it's a part that I would love to try. So if that happens, I'll give it a go, even if I lose all the lines and I'm standing there like an idiot. But I would love to do that before it's all over.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for introducing me to science fiction with Star Trek. My question is about Babylon 5.
Good.
I'd like to know what are some of your favorite memories from Babylon 5 on the set, off the set, your experiences there?
Well, it's sort of a general memory. And general memory is extremely positive. I got along with everybody. And that in itself is kind of an exception to the rule. Everybody was, of course, it was 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later. When we were doing Star Trek, there was a whole caste system. And it was a caste system throughout the industry. There were the leading actors, and then there were the actors who were there every week, but they were the supporting actors. And it was like just a fact. It didn't have to be articulated. It was a fact that they were not, in sometimes very nuanced or subtle way, they weren't the stars. They were supporting actors. And it's not like anybody looked down on them. It was just, you knew that you had a certain station, certain level on the show that you were supposed to fill. And you went about doing it, and that was your orientation. By the time you got to Babylon 5, 2 decades had passed, or 3 decades. And everybody on B5 knew Star Trek, and most of them were fans. So I was accepted totally as an equal on the show, and with great warmth and generosity. And so from that point alone, it was terrific. We were all compadres. We were all, the same level. And I could kid with Bruce, and I could kid with Jerry Doyle, and and have this relationship with everybody that was really very, very pleasant. I loved them all. I had a really good time with those folks. And then J. Michael Straczynski wrote a really interesting character for me. The irony is, or if you ever need to tell somebody how, if you have a friend, a young friend who wants to be an actor, you can tell them this story, either to encourage them or discourage them. The business is very capricious. There's no natural succession. Sometimes you start, John Wayne started as an extra, and this, and he went up the scale. But more likely than not, there's many hundreds of thousands of applicants for roles in television and movies, as there are now. The best people don't always get cast. And frequently, you never even hear of the best people, because they do little theater, and they spend their lives being wonderful, but doing little theater and never getting recognized. And then you have actors who are mediocre, who play the same bloody role every time you see them. It's the same character, who become movie stars, and become gigantic. So God, I knew this was going to happen. What were you saying? What were you asking me about?
Your pleasant memories from Babylon 5.
Okay. Yes, I guess this is what I was. J. Michael Straczynski And remind me to say one more thing about him after I do this. I didn't know him well. I knew him a little bit. I knew him through a writer named Harlan Ellison. And J. Michael was a fan of Star Trek, and he wanted to use me in an episode of B5. And, actually, I'm going to digress, and God help me, I hope I can remember to come back. I called him once. I was writing a comic book. And I thought he might, very naive on my part, I thought he might want to collaborate with me. So he was producing Murder, She Wrote, or some show like that at Universal. We had lunch together. And he said to me at the time, he says, I'm doing, I think I've sold this television series called Babylon 5. I said, oh, great, congratulations. And he says, there's something I would love for you to do, if you wouldn't mind. I said, just say it. He says, well, we have this, who knows the show well? Okay. What is the place everybody walked through when they had this yeah, that. And they were going to have the camera come through, and cross through the tables, and people, and I'd be sitting at a table with somebody else, and the camera would just go by me, and you'd hear me saying, well, in Star Trek, we need to do it that way. And I thought, that's great, I'd love to do that, that'd be fun. Well, that evidently was not really what he had in mind. So he called me and said he had a role that he'd like me to do, a guest starring role on Babylon 5 in the first season. And I said, terrific, terrific. And it was a part of a character who gets into the captain's mind. Two people get into his mind. And they're literally inside his mind. And I had a heart attack. I was in Chicago and I had a heart attack. And wasn't as receptive an audience, actually. And I think that's why I had it. So keep laughing, guys. And one of the first people I called after my family was Joe, and I said, I'm not going to be available to shoot this. So he says, oh, okay, well, I'll try to hold the script. I'll try to hold it until you're better. Who says that? Not in my business. That doesn't work that way. But, as it turned out, he couldn't. He ran out of screenplays. He ran out of TV plays. And he had to shoot it. But got a great actor, an English actor, to play the part. He did a terrific job. But Joe had said he's going to try to find another role for me. Well, you hear that. You grow cynical very, very quickly in this business. Everybody loves you, and your brother, and the sister, and they're going to do whatever it takes to help you. I sort of dismissed it. I dispatched it. Okay. And so a week went by, and I got a call from him and said, I'm writing another role for you, since you can't do that one. And it turned out to be Bester. And instead of one episode, it turned out to be 12. And over 5 years. So don't let anybody tell you, it's good to have a heart attack. So I don't know, did that answer your question?
Absolutely, thank you very much. You were going to say something else about Mr. Szynski?
Yes, thank you. Good man, good man. For all of you who have even watched Babylon 5 once, he's written an autobiography called Becoming Superman. And it's a most amazing story. I am given to hyperbolic speech, but this is not an exaggeration. It's an amazing story. It's scary. It's full of menace, and it's full of inspiration. And it's coming out in July. And even if you don't know the show or don't know who he is, it's just an extraordinary read. And you wonder as you turn the page, first of all, how did he survive this? How did he survive this life? And then, how did he become so successful? To go through all he went through as a child and as a young adolescent, and then still manage to break away, to go out on its own, and become this very successful professional. So I really recommend everybody. I have no vested interest in it. he doesn't know that. I got an advance copy, but he doesn't know that I'm talking about it. It's called Becoming Superman, and I think you'll find it really, really well worth reading.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Some of my earliest memories are watching first run Star Trek, but that's not what I'm here to ask you about. How much of Alfred Bester was modeled by you? How much did you influence that character as opposed to it being written? Thank you.
That's an interesting question. First of all, in television, most directors literally are traffic cops. They're there to block it, to block the show. You go there, we're coming for a close-up here, we're going to do it over the shoulder over here, and that's all they have time to. When you make a movie, if you do 2 pages in a day, it's an accomplishment. You do television, you've got to do 9, 10 pages a day. So it's much more difficult task and a lot more tension. So directors really don't have a chance really to work with actors. They certainly don't work with the leads, the ones who are on every week. They figure, they've established who they are and what they do, and they're not going to monkey with that for the most part. They may take the guest stars aside and talk to them and say, do something else. So, in general, you're pretty much left on your own. In particular, Joe just gave me the words, and I interpreted it the way I chose to interpret it. Never came up to me, never gave me notes about what I did. He had a rule of don't change the lines, and on occasion, infrequently, but on occasion, I felt like I could, introduce some dialogue that might be fun, and I would talk to him and he'd say, yeah. He never told me no. But I certainly went through the procedure of asking. But otherwise, generally speaking, the roles you do best are the ones that you do intuitively. That you just know the character. You've heard of actors who break down the character, do a history on the character, research on the character. Well, I suppose if it's a biographical piece you're doing, you need to do research. But if you're doing research, you're intellectualizing the character. And that may help. It may help, may give you insight into how to play it. But if you just know that character, if there's something about him that you know from your personal experience, whether it's anger or envy or dark humor or whatever it might be, conscientiousness, sense of humanity, you trust yourself. You trust yourself to find that and to make that as part of your performance. So it was up to me. It was up to me, as it was to the other actors, how we played our role. The one thing that wasn't written in the part was the fist. The fact that I had a frozen hand. And actually, I chose to freeze the left hand because I'm lefty. And the reason I did that was the thing where it was for me a clue as to how to play the character. Because I was working with the 2 protagonists in the show that I worked with opposite as antagonists were Jerry Doyle and Bruce Boxleitner. And they were both 6'2". Okay? I'm 5'5". Although for years I kept telling people I was 5'7". Like that really big difference. But I said, how am I going to be able to, when I look at them, when I confront them, I'm going to have to stand up and look up. That to begin with is already a handicap. Now that to begin with is already I am, and as a person, when I meet somebody who's big and tall, I'm very conscious of the fact that they're big. And that I'm sure in some way will always influence my attitude. When I meet an actor who's my size or about my size, I feel a sense of camaraderie, you know? Then I find out that they're a jerk, and then I don't feel that way. But you know, a guy I really like, I like Ethan. What's his last name? Voyager, I think?
Phillips.
Yeah, Ethan Phillips. He's very funny to begin with. But then I also have a rapport with him, I think, because we're about the same size, you know. It's curious. I'm being very vulnerable here. I'm really telling you all my neurotic. So my point was that how do I feel that I am a match for these two guys? How do I feel? How do I internalize that? And my sense was, well, if I have a handicap, I know the word disabled now is what we're not supposed to use. It's not socially correct anymore. If I have a disabling situation, and I have overcome that, and I am a leader among my people, then I've got to be pretty damn strong, pretty damn, I've got some pretty strong, pretty good feelings about myself. And I would infuse that into the character, that sense of power. And I got it from having a fist that I couldn't use. And I made it my left hand because that's my stronger hand. So it sounds a little bizarre, but it worked for me. It was something that I could use. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was wondering if you could remember your first con experience and could talk about how it's changed over the years.
Oh, I can't remember the first con experience. Oh, well, I do remember when we had in L.A. It may have been the first. I think I would remember this. But we had a costume parade. You know, in the early days, we had costume parades at every convention. Every convention. And we had a young lady who came out naked. She had a little diaphanous little scarf that she wore. It hid absolutely nothing. So I do remember that one. This reminds me of another story. Still before the time of agents, when we were booking our own shows, no, maybe not. Maybe I was being booked. Doesn't matter. It's not important to the story. There was a young woman who I'd seen at 2 or 3 conventions, and she was always, you're gonna have to ask your dad who this character was. Your mother. She would dress up. And any of you can guess it. I got a fake tricorder here. Anybody who can guess it. She wore white boxer shorts, blue tights, a sweatshirt with a U on it, and her nose was like that.
Underdog.
Who said it? Yes! Yes, that's who she was. She was Underdog. Is it the lady, is the person with the white hair? Oh, over there. Okay, well, good for you. You get this, it's yours. Here, give this to her. So she would come to these conventions, and I sort of didn't pay too much attention. And then one day, she just sort of stood in front of me. I said, and who are you supposed to be? And she said, I am not supposed to be. I am Underdog. This is before voiceovers and anime and all this stuff. And I said, well, isn't that supposed to be kind of like a kid's show? She says, and you're supposed to be kind of laugh. She says, my father taught me never to laugh. So I said, okay. And she says, I do a dance. I would like you to come and see it. Part of the costume parade, people come up, they do skits, they do, little things, they do dances. So she had asked me a couple times. I finally, like on the 3rd time I met her, I went to the dance. And she wore her Underdog costume with the cape and the whole thing. And she had a record player. And she had a symphony. on a 33 and a third record. And she played it, and the drums, cymbals, horns, they all were going a million miles an hour, and she did her dance. It was amazing. It was amazing. How can, what world did she live in? So I stayed. I wasn't going to leave. And she cornered me later and asked me what I thought. And I said, oh, just great, just wonderful. Thank you for inviting me. Okay, so a couple of more conventions go by, and I run into her again. No more undergrad. Now she's dressed as a Disney princess, in a diaphanous, veil, gown, and crown. And I said, oh, you're somebody else. Who are you now? She says, I am Princess Nafnahonasat from the planet Gaga. And she says, I do a dance.